Okay, so first things first, why would you want to make a graph on your computer? Personally, I just think it looks nicer. Just look at this graph and compare it with this graph. Alright? Another reason could be you have no graph paper, so obviously you can't draw it by hand and you have to hand in your report tomorrow, let's say. This may be another reason. And the third reason I came up with would be if you don't want to draw all your uncertainty boxes perfectly, doing it by computer will save you a lot of time and effort. But whatever the reason, if you don't know how to make your graph properly, you're going to be in for some trouble. So we'll start from zero. I'm working in Microsoft Word 2010 and we're going to work in Word, not Excel, because Excel functions are integrated into Word and I want my graph to be in the same document as the rest of my report. So to add a graph, we just go to Insert, Chart, and choose the XY scatter graph. Now once you choose your graph, it will open up an Excel spreadsheet, and this is where you can input your data values. I have my table of values here, so I can just quickly put that in. Okay, and once that's done, we can just close it. Don't worry, you can open it again at any time. And this will be the default graph that you get. If I was an IB science teacher and you handed this in to me, I would politely ask you to leave the country. As far as I know, the standards of all IB science teachers are this high, so I'm going to go through the process of making a perfect graph from this suitable for IB science. So once you have your graph and select it, you will notice this chart tools pane will appear, and this is mainly where we're going to be working. But first thing I want to do is remove this legend because that's useless, and we'll also resize the chart so that it fills up more of the page. The next thing I want to do is give it a meaningful title. Now Y values is the most boring and meaningless title I can think of, so let's give it a more appropriate title. We'll call it, now this title will tell us a bit about the experiment, and that is pretty good overall. Next thing I want to do is label the axes as well, so we'll have it down here. This will be the independent variable, volume of water, which will be measured in centimeters cubed, and with an uncertainty of plus or minus 1. I just want this to be in a different font, and that looks pretty good. We'll add the next one now. The vertical axis title, personally I like the rotated title, but again it's up to you. This will be mass of water plus the cylinder, measured in grams, again with an uncertainty of plus or minus 1. Now it's getting better, but we still have a lot of work to do before this is acceptable. The next thing I want to do is work with the axis titles. So I know my data goes from 10 to 60, so there's no need for this to go up to, let's say, 100 or 300, whatever. So let's just cap it. We'll have it fixed at 0 and 70, and that's going to be the maximum of my data here. And obviously on this side, I know that it starts from 145 and ends at 195, so it doesn't need to start from 0. We can have it start at, let's say, 120 instead, and we can have it end at 200. Okay, so now the line is a lot clearer and we can see the trend more clearly, I guess. Yeah. And the next thing we want to do is go back to the axis options. We can see we have a major unit and a minor unit here. Basically what this is for, the major unit will be the increments of the labels on the axis. So as you can see, it goes up by 10 each time over here, and I feel like they've been spaced out a bit too much, so maybe we'll change it to 5. And yes, this looks a lot better, so we'll just do that for now. And again, the same thing up here, it's going up by 10s, but I still think that's a bit much, so maybe we'll change it to 5 and see how it looks. That's a lot nicer, personally, I think. Okay, and the minor, actually let's go over here first. We'll change the grid lines. We'll show the minor grid lines for both horizontal and vertical axes. Alright, so the minor unit will be 1 here, and the minor unit again 1 here, and this is the grid that you'll get because of that. Now obviously if you want to change it, you could just change this to, let's say, 5, and it will show a bigger grid, but you'll want a pretty small grid to keep it accurate, so this looks pretty good to me. and I'll just change the color of this to make it look a bit nicer, because this is what I like to do. We'll have this one as well. You edit the horizontal and the vertical one separately, just bear that in mind as you work. So this is what it looks like now. It's looking pretty good and we're getting close. The next thing I want to do is add a trend line. Now obviously there's lots of different types of trend line. For this one I will want a linear trend line, and we can format this as well. Obviously if your data points show an exponential shape, you do not want to use a linear trend line. Obviously you choose an exponential curve, and I don't want this to be a curve, so let's just keep it linear. And the forecast is basically how far it extends beyond the poles, and I'll want this to go forwards and backwards 10 because I've capped it at 70 and 0 respectively. And as you can see, this goes off the edge a bit here, so I'll just change my y-axis to show maybe up to 220, and that's right, it reaches the end now. Okay, so back to the trend line. Basically that's all there is to do with the trend line, unless you want to format the color and make it like red or something, but I don't think you would want to do that. Just keep it black, maybe make it a bit thicker, etc, etc. So we're right near the end now. All we need to do is fix the data points. Now data points are the bane of all graphs done on a computer. As I'm sure your teacher has told you, there is only one shape that the data point should be, and it is not a diamond. Now there are reasons for that, but you should know that already. Just select your series, your y values, and we can format that. Now the marker options, there's built-in markers that you can choose from, and guess what, the plus is there. So once you've done that, this is well, in my opinion at least, I think this is perfect and quite suitable for a graph you need to do for IB Science. One other thing, I don't really know why, but it puts a box around your graph, and I don't really like that. So if we just want to format the chart area and change the border to no line, I think it looks a lot nicer this way, but again, that's just personal preference. Once you play around with the features, you can make your things look nicer and personalize it a bit more, but this is the gist of what you should be getting. And obviously once you're done, you don't have to do this every single time. When you finish, you can save your chart template. We can call this science graph or something, and the next time you choose to make a chart, you can choose from your templates. We have this, the science chart, and here you go. This is what it would give us, which is basically our formatted chart already, so we don't have to go through all that again. And I haven't gone through uncertainties yet, because I think that deserves its own video. So if you want to learn how to do that, check out part 2.